Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Two, um, forgive me, Meant to be Inspiring, Outstanding, and Noble. Um, with my brother Willie, we wanted to talk today about reaction and response. So forgive us for taking a while to make another video, but we try to get into some type of routine where we put something out weekly, God will. But today we're going to talk about response and reaction. So the difference between response and reaction lies in the level of thought, intention, control, um, involved in each one. So reaction is often immediately and automatic, driven by emotional or physical, psychological impulse without much conscious thought. It's instinctive, which can be beneficial in urgent situations, but may lack careful consideration. For example, snapping back when someone criticizes you is a reaction. So response is more deliberate and thoughtful. It involves pausing to assess the situation, considering possible outcomes, and choosing a course of action. Responding allows for you to measure approach that aligns with longer term goals or values rather than being controlled by immediate emotions. For instance, calmly addressing criticism by asking for specific feedback is a response. So, in short, reactions are often quicker and emotionally charged, where responses are slower and more intentional. So, this has been something that I just want to talk about. We think about life and how certain situations we react, and it caused something very detrimental to happen, your life to change. You can be just not in a good place from reaction. Response, it takes time to self-control and discipline. I would say discipline control of yourself when you get into a situation where things could be triggered, your emotions from something from the past, possibly. But
Right.
basically, that's me summing up my thoughts on reaction and response. So from that point, I'm going to defer to Brother Willie.
All right. Thank you, CJ. Um, Today, as we go into this topic, dealing with reacting and responding, it comes from a place where myself and CJ, we try to come up with everyday tools that we think if we pay attention to, it will help us better our daily lives a little, become a little bit better on this journey as we always highlight self-improvement journey. And so, like my brother said, reacting, one of the words that characterizes reactions is instincts. And instincts sometimes you do it without thinking. It's a reflex. Um, he mentioned also that it's an emotional thing. I've worked in the prison system as a correctional officer, and I spoke with inmates on numerous occasions that most of them say that they are here because of uncontrolled emotions. And so we wanted to highlight these two words, reacting versus responding, because there's benefits if you do one, and there's potentially consequences if you do the other. And so highlighting the benefits when you're dealing with responding, all of a sudden, boom, we in an accident. I was a firefighter 20 some years. My brother was in law enforcement, and you get in a bad accident, and who do you call? Call first who? First reactors, or do you call first responders? And we have to pay attention that they use the word responder because somebody come on the scene that just reacting. In some cases, like CJ said, it can be helpful. But in other instances, a reaction sometimes, like when we fighting fire, when I was fighting fire, and you come up on the scene and you assess the scene, and the house is on fire and there's no windows open. One of the things we tell people not to do is open a lot of windows. Leave them closed. Let us do that, because introducing oxygen to a fire can make the fire spread. It feeds the fire, you know. And so when you are a first responder, or when you responded, that means you ran these things through your mind. You considered the pros and cons. You looked at it. Response tends to be outcome oriented, whereas reaction me a lot of times deals with just doing it without thought. And it takes training a lot of times. It takes thought. It takes um you have to look at the options, all of these different things. And so um responding, thoughtful, deliberate action, consider the situation, weighing the options, conscious decision, reacting, instinctive, emotional response to a situation, which we said without thinking. And a lot of times we are in communities that are very reactive, and there are a lot of regrets when you tend to be reactive. You go back and you reflect, and you're like, man, why did I do that? I shouldn't have did that.
That's right.
And sometimes not taking a moment to think,
Right.
to say what would be the best way, because don't forget, we're not looking to win.
That's right.
We're looking to better and uplift, because we can win a fight by beating somebody down. We can, if that's what you call winning. But we don't want to win. We don't want to just win at the
Right.
expense of somebody's way of being. We don't care about winning. We're looking for the right relationship, the right results, so that we can better ourselves and help the ones around us be better. So we humbly say, put some thought into whether we reacting too much and we should be responding more. Put some thought into it, so the next time we run into these situations, we may respond. And if we have been caught up, like myself in the past, if we have been caught up in reacting, and we go back and reflect and we have some regrets, always take a moment to say, let me go apologize.
That's right.
There's always a way to fix it. Just
That's
because
right.
we haven't done it quite right don't mean it's the end of the road.
That's
We can
right.
always go back and say, I'm sorry, I apologize, I atone, whatever word you choose to use. And let's start this day as if it's a brand new beginning. And let's get everybody on board, because we got to uplift each other. Like people always say, we all we got.
That's right.
And if we don't take care of each other, then who gonna do it?
That's
So let's
right.
start by uplifting ourselves to make the right decision, so that we can encourage each other to make the right decision. So I pray that you got something out of what I said, and I pass it back to my brother CJ. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Willie. Well said. And with what you were saying, something came to me personally, is that when we get into situations and you personally know when you start feeling uncomfortable, and that's at the pivotal moment where you have to decide yourself
Yes, sir.
to keep control of self, that this is not where you want to be, and being
Right.
able to take a step back. And that's the
Right.
difference. But I would say this, it starts with a thought that you
Yes.
say, hey, this is the moment that I'm not feeling like I got control, or some miscommunication,
Right.
and it's not going the way before continue. That's when you kick in and say, you know what? A response at this moment is need to just be silent, or say, hey, right now, I don't think that this is a good time to finish this conversation. And then
Beautiful.
you can be able to walk back. So that came from my own personal journey. And it
Yes.
didn't happen. And this, with all this response and reaction discussion, it's not going to happen overnight.
Yes,
It's
sir.
going to take for you to get into a situation, and you're going to pause for a second And you're gonna say, okay, this is that pivotal moment. I need to say, okay, this deserves a response and not a
You know, CJ,
reaction.
the word triggers came to my mind. And a lot of times when you deal with triggers, when I was dealing with prison, we were taught about deactivating. And
Right.
so in order to deactivate, or you have to first recognize the onset of what's going to trigger you. And so some people said when I get ready to get angry, I get quiet. Some men said when they got ready to blow up, their tear fall out their eye. Whatever that trigger is for you. Some people say hair stand up on their arm, different triggers. Find out what your trigger is. So some people even say they feel hot, you know, they sweat,
Right.
and so whatever your trigger, nobody's trigger is the same. So once you recognize your trigger, take time to study yourself, figure out what that trigger is. And when you feel that trigger, that's when Brother Howard was saying, take a moment to say, okay, I'm
Yes.
being triggered. Let me slow down, because we don't want to continue living with these regrets and I'm sorry's. And sometimes we may not get the opportunity to go back and fix these things. So we want to make the most out of these situations. So I know I butt in on you, brother, but it just hit my mind. So thank you for allowing me that time.
Brother, it's about iron sharpens iron. And that's what we do. And that's
Yes,
a part
sir.
of our growth. So with that being said, I think that we conveyed um, two excellent points that people could take something from, and we just want to give God all the glory.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
thank you for your
Thank you.
time, and thank you for listening and tuning in. Thank you, Brother
Thank you.
Willie.
Thank you, brother.
You have a good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you may be.
You too.